Hello again. In my first video, I made it clear that there was a possibility of connecting with heaven's reality rather than with suffering the reality of our everyday lives and all the problems that surround us. But how do we connect with heaven's reality? Well, Jesus' life on earth is our template, our model of how we should do this. The scriptures don't tell us very much about his early life, but he still had an unbroken connection with heaven, as was obvious when he was just born. The three wise men delivered gifts to him, gold and frankincense and myrrh, very costly gifts. He was royalty, and they demonstrated that. He was circumcised at 8 days old, and Simeon and Anna prophesied over him. You can see their prophecies in Luke chapter 2, verses 21 to 38. He then returned to Nazareth after having been circumcised, gone through all the rituals necessary for a Jewish young boy. He then returned to Nazareth, and we see the child grew and became strong in spirit and filled with wisdom, for God's blessing was upon him. That's Luke 2 and verse 40. Now, we have God's blessing upon us as well. So let's have a look at what happened since that visit to Jerusalem. He revisited Jerusalem for the bar mitzvah at the age of 12, and that's in Luke 2:41. But nothing else is recorded until about the age of 30. But at the age of 30, everything started to change because he went to find his cousin, John the Baptist, who was baptizing in the Jordan. And Jesus went to find him and he asked him to baptize him. And although John was a bit reticent because he said, "You should be baptizing me," and so on. You can read about that in Matthew 3. Here's the account. And Jesus was baptized, and he came up immediately out of the water, and behold, the heavens were opened, and John saw the Spirit of God descending and lighting on him, Jesus. And behold, a voice from heaven saying, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased and delighted." That's the Amplified Bible. So John saw the Spirit of God coming down upon Jesus like a dove, and heard a voice from heaven saying and testifying, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased." That's in Matthew 3, 16 and 17, the Amplified Bible. Now, once that had happened, and Jesus had received the Holy Spirit upon him, until that point, he'd chosen no disciples and done no miracles. He was just living as an ordinary young Jewish man. But it became evident that something had changed when he went to the marriage at Cana. At Cana, you remember, this is in John chapter 2, there was a reality of that wedding. They had run out of wine. The earth's reality was lack. They'd run out of wine. Now you know what happened. He drew upon the life of God in him, connected to heaven's reality, and supernaturally turned water into wine. Now my training is chemistry. Water is H2O. Wine is C2H5OH. There's a carbon in there. That's a complete creative miracle. And Jesus was able to do that by his connection with heaven, even though he was on earth and surrounded by earth's lack. It says in John 2 and verse 11, this miracle of Cana was the first of many extraordinary miracles Jesus performed in Galilee that revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Jesus demonstrated that he was vitally connected to heaven's reality, so he was able to just change earth's reality by just talking to the servants and saying, "Bring the water." Now, perhaps when you look at your family circumstances of lack and sickness, it makes you want to connect with heaven. How do you do it? Well, as modern day disciples, we need to remember what Jesus taught his disciples who were physically around him. They were watching him pray, and they said, "Teach us how to pray." And he said, "Well, look, when you pray, say this: Our Father, who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. Do you remember that? And before asking for daily bread or the need to forgive, Jesus prioritized this request, that the priority of heaven, or the presence of heaven and the reality of heaven, will come down on earth, that God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And that request that heaven's reality will be manifest was top of the prayer. Now, we prayed that prayer many times. We learned it as kids probably, but we haven't seen that it's necessary for our problems to be solved to bring heaven's reality upon the earth. This is how Jesus ministered. He met hungry folk, he fed the multitudes. He healed countless numbers of sick people. When he met demons, he cast them out. When he saw dead people, he raised the dead. Then he sent his disciples out to do the same. And he said this: as you go, preach, saying the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out demons. Matthew 10, 7 and 8. Now the church is not doing that. We say, oh yeah, we know that, but we're not doing it. We need to do it. In other words, what we need to proclaim is the kingdom of heaven is here. In other words, heaven's reality is available and it can change earth's reality. This is how we should pray. We should pray, and this is what we should preach and demonstrate. Instead of just putting up with the circumstances around us, we need to bring heaven's reality. We need to realize there is a connection. We've prayed that connection in the Lord's Prayer, and we can bring heaven's reality down to earth. This is a different way of living. And there is this alternative. People think, well, this is life. No, it's not. This is life to be changed by drawing on the power and the love that's available from our Father in heaven. Now, we're going to learn this together. Stay with me over the next few videos, and you're going to be delighted as you find out more about this truth.